Some cities in America may still have these age-old signs propped up in dining rooms, but nevertheless, the smoking section truly remains a relic of a bygone era, and good riddance. Biases aside, eradicating public smoking areas has cleaned up the air for the rest of society, cutting back on the negative health ramifications of widespread secondhand smoke. Before September 11th, airport security was a world away from what it has become. We could bring what seemed like just about anything onto the plane with us, including aerosol spray cans and all the liquids we could fit. Today, however, tiny bottles are permitted and aerosol cans are strictly prohibited. It's undeniable that society was a touch less, touchy in the 1990s. Comedians could do or say just about anything with only a few exceptions. Cancel culture was not a thing of the present, and funny people got away with much more than they would get away with today. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? We'll leave that to you. Although we were making our way towards stricter seatbelt enforcement in the 1990s, the laws weren't as forcibly upheld as they are today, especially where kids were concerned. It was still a common occurrence to sight a kid just moseying around the back seat of the car while their parents did 60 on the highway. Animal rights used to be a fringe movement, with groups like PETA seen as social outcasts. But with the rise of the internet, more and more people have begun to sympathize with the ethical treatment of animals, leading to most fashion brands eradicating their use of real furs in favor of faux ones. But not in the 1990s. Even celebrity A-listers were seen donning the real thing, a practice that is now illegal and will get you pulled over, just like running a stoplight or speeding. Talking without a hands-free device was a normal daily thing in the 1990s. Cars with car phones were especially desirable before the ever-present cell phone became more widely available. Depending on where you live, single-use plastic bags now come at a price. Where all stores across the country used to give these bags out freely, some shops in certain states will charge you if you want to use them. These increased regulations have led to fewer instances of plastic pollution in our environment, which is always a good thing. It was a different era, or was it? Kids playing outside without parental supervision was as ordinary as the Saturday morning cartoons. Without widespread use of the internet to distract kids, the world was their playground. But times have changed somewhat, and parents seem less willing today to let their children out and about without knowing their exact whereabouts at all times. It's not as if copyright laws didn't exist in the 1990s. It's that people seem to give fewer hoots about them. As a result, widespread copying of movies, television, and music was rampant. It wasn't at all unusual to burn a CD for your friend or to tape the latest episode of your favorite show so you could add it to your collection. People with food allergies seemed to exist on the fringes of society in the 1990s. More accurately, food allergies weren't commonly discussed, and therefore people who were suffering from them didn't realize what was causing them trouble. Today, we're much more vocal about accommodating a friend or acquaintance who might have a gluten or dairy intolerance. In the early days of the internet, the average person was probably just a bit naive about what they were dealing with. It isn't called the World Wide Web because only your neighbors can see what you're up to. This detachment from the ramifications of identity theft led to lots of public displays of data TMI. Many schools across the country have fully and outright banned peanut butter from kids' lunchboxes. It's troubling that so many children today suffer from life-threatening peanut allergies. This is a far cry from the PB&J sandwich staple that kids of the 1990s freely enjoyed without restriction. Pranking was so common, they even had TV shows in the 1990s that were centered around pranking an unsuspecting public. This lackadaisical approach to pranking meant that teens could do almost whatever they pleased, with senior year pranks almost encouraged by their high school administrations. As we mentioned in a previous slide about a lax approach to seatbelt laws, this was also true for children riding in the front seat of the car. We can only guess that the research and data regarding car crashes just hadn't reached the public consciousness as much as it has today, enabling parents to let their kids ride in the front seat guilt-free. Just as our humor used to be culturally insensitive in the 90s, so were our Halloween costumes. Society simply wasn't as outspoken today without the internet regarding the appropriate way to engage with other cultures. Perhaps the nation had other things on its plate at that time, but it really goes to show that while cultural sensitivity is important, the internet drastically reconfigured the way we engage with one another. Blasting music in public places was much more commonplace in the 1990s. Perhaps people just couldn't be bothered to complain, or that the noise pollution wasn't as concerning as it would be today. Cities now have noise ordinances in place, restricting their inhabitants from playing music above a certain decibel level and only at certain times of the day and night. Being tan was an extremely trendy look in the 1990s. Whether you got it the natural way or used the harmful UV rays of a tanning bed, everywhere you looked, people were tanned, and often unnaturally so. Today, we know much more about the health, risks of unprotected sun exposure, and tanning beds are much harder to find and are no longer a regular staple in every beauty parlor. The 1990s were really the golden days of unregulated fun. Whoever thought to put a playground inside a fast food restaurant was a genius. Did they think to clean the playground, though? That bit leaves us scratching our heads. Eating your Big Mac next to a ball pit that may or may not have a dubious odor is not exactly considered sanitary by today's standards. If you said the word's cybersecurity to the average person in the 1990s, they might think you were quoting a line from Blade Runner or The Terminator. Such was the naivety when approaching data security and public computers. Few people ever thought twice about entering sensitive information into a shared computer. As hackers, were only those brainy-looking terrorists we'd see in movies. Though this might seem like a very distant memory to the hyper-regulations we now see on airplanes, it was once a normal practice to be able to pay for your dog to sit in the cabin with you. Quite frankly, we think that sounds great, and would love to see a resurgence of canine boarding freedoms in the years to come. Hitchhiking was a very common practice during the hippie days of the 60s and 70s, and the stigma hadn't quite caught up with it in the 1990s. You could still regularly see drifters or young people standing on the edge of the highway with their pack on their backs and their thumbs stuck out to passersby. New York or bust. The mixtape craze hadn't died down one bit in the 1990s. If anything, CDs made the burning process easier, especially as those early cataloging programs like iTunes began to enter the scene. To receive a mixtape from your friend was the best gift in the world. Today, though, it's far less common for the average person to even own CDs. Playlists are the new thing now, often hemmed in by paid-for streaming service. We've all probably either seen or experienced this next taboo firsthand, but parental spanking in public was just another glossed-over aspect of everyday society. It wasn't until the rise of the internet and the dissemination of alternative viewpoints that saw an end, once and for all, to the social acceptability of corporal punishment of children in public. This so-called taboo was really fun, and we miss these days. Remember just setting up a table and selling your art or your baked goods? The merchant landscape is now highly regulated, and sellers without permits can be fined and physically removed from their location. A lemonade stand seems harmless enough, but technically speaking, even kids aren't permitted to sell their juice without a permit. We admit that disposable cameras were kind of like the surprise precursor to the social landscape where we now find ourselves. Everyone has a camera phone, everywhere and at all times. Even children have camera phones. But in the 90s, disposable cameras were a cheap and easy way to document your every move. Public places felt a little less private and little more public.